I'm Tori,
And I'm Audrey.
and we're two sisters diving into the darkest side of human nature and exploring the unknown
From chilling true crime and gruesome murders,
to spine-tingling paranormal encounters. We cover it all,
so grab a flashlight
and maybe a blanket.
because you're listening to
The
The
guilty
Guilty and
and the
the
ghostly.
Ghostly.
Episode 4, y'all.
Here we are.
If you came this far, thank you
Thank
for
you.
listening.
Thank you. We appreciate it, guys.
We do.
It's been nice. Exciting and learning everything and the research, and I'm really excited about next week. So this week, Tori was supposed to bring a spooky story.
Right. But this week, Tori had a rough week.
She's
here, y'all.
She's not thriving, but she is surviving, so.
Yes. That is literally my life motto right now.
But that's okay. I came in clutch. I've got a story, and this will give us more time on hers because we are actually going to the location tonight that she's doing hers over.
So then we could give y'all like an update on how that went and have like a real personal encounter.
So that'll be fun.
Yes.
So what we're covering today, though, we've actually already been to.
Yes, we have.
So what we're going over today is the USS Lexington in Corpus Christi. So we went on vacation last year.
Yeah,
it was last year. Yeah, we try to do a sibling trip every year. There's a bunch of us. We've got several brothers. We're the only two girls. And we started this new tradition where we would try to spend 1 weekend out of the year to try to get as many of us together as we can. We pick a location, we go, we hang out. We've done the Guadalupe River. Or no, we didn't. Yeah, it was the Guadalupe River that we went to. And last year we went to Corpus Christi, which that was fun getting there. My truck broke down.
That was crazy.
Yeah, Josh was supposed to go. He had to work. Couldn't go last minute. I had to go by myself with the kids and my siblings.
Yep.
It was an event, but it was a lot of fun.
It was very fun.
I
really enjoyed it.
I like Corpus Christi a lot. And our oldest brother, the oldest of us all, lives right there, right by Corpus Christi too. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But the main thing that I remember when we walked up was the just sheer size of this ship.
Yeah, it's huge.
Like, it is ginormous. And then one thing that I also, because me and my family went to Corpus Christi by ourselves one year, and it was the same thing when we went, are all the little hermit crabs that live on the little beach right there by it.
Oh, yeah. And we saw a lot of jellyfish, too.
A lot of jellyfish.
Like, a lot, like, washed up on shore.
Mm-hmm.
There were some even on rocks and stuff.
Yeah, they're everywhere. So with us doing USS Lexington, I'm going to be honest, it was kind of hard to find actual ghost stories on it, even though it is supposedly really haunted. So I set this up a little bit differently. I'm going to kind of give us the history of the ship and then kind of go over some of the ghost stories. And then I watched an episode of Ghost Hunters on this, and we know how much we love Ghost Hunters.
Yes.
So I'm going to just kind of talk about their episode and some experiences that people have had and kind of go about it that way.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, so let's get comfy. All right, here we go. So the USS Lexington was commissioned in 1943. It has set more records than any other Essex-class carrier in naval aviation history, being decommissioned in 1991. In Essex, I was like, what the hell is it?
Yeah.
So I had to look it up. And Essex was a class of aircraft carriers of the United States Navy consisting of 24 vessels. And these ships were the backbone of the U.S. Navy during World War II. So 14 of the countries were in combat during World War II. These ships led the United States Navy to victory in the Pacific during World War II, and several ships were actually really damaged. 2 of them being severely damaged, but actually none of them were sunk. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So the USS Lexington was the oldest working carrier in the United States Navy. The Lexington was originally named USS Cabot during World War II. The final construction was being completed at Massachusetts Four River Shipyard. Word was received that the original carrier named USS Lexington was sunk in the Coral Sea. So then they decided to kind of honor it to change the USS Cabot to Lexington to honor the one that sunk.
Yeah.
So the USS Lexington soon joined the 5th Fleet at Pearl Harbor. The 5th Fleet was established April 26, 1944. It was known as the Central Pacific Force. The carrier participated in nearly every operation on the Pacific Theater, spending a total of 21 months in combat. Lexington's planes destroyed 372 enemy aircraft in the air and 475 more on the ground. So 372 in the air and 475 on the ground that it destroyed. It also destroyed 300,000 tons of enemy cargo and damaged an additional 600,000 tons. And it also brought down 15 planes and assisted in downing 5 more.
Dang. So they were pretty credible on everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Girl put in some work.
Yeah.
That was another thing. I didn't really put it in the notes, but when I was researching it, I guess it's custom to call the ships she and her, but I felt like a fraud calling the ship that because I don't know why. I guess it was my own mental thing. I was like, I can't call it a her or she. It's a ship.
Yeah.
I don't have that emotional connection to it, so I just thought that was kind of funny.
Did they call like all ships?
I guess so, because all of them that I was looking at, they're like, she did this and she did that, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
The Japanese reported the Lexington sunk no less than 4 times, but returned to fight again each time. This actually earned the Lexington the nickname the Blue Ghost. So they would...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's how I got it, Blue Ghost.
That's a nickname that it has?
Yes, the nickname is Blue Ghost, and it's because they would think it's so badly damaged that it's sunk, it's done for, and they would leave and be like, oh, we won, it sunk, and then here comes the next battle, and here comes the Lexington, and they're like, what the hell? So I thought that was kind of cool. Lexington was briefly decommissioned from 1947 to 1955 after the war. It was brought back to primarily operate with the 7th Fleet of San Diego, California as an offshore vigil during tensions in, I'm going to butcher these, Formosa, Laos, and Cuba, but not involved in any combat during that brief time. It then set sail in 1962 to Pensacola, Florida. They used it for training operations and eventually being officially designated as CVT-16, a Navy training carrier. Corpus Christi then became the permanent home of the USS Lexington. So that was just kind of the brief history of where it came from, the badass shit that it did, and where it's at now.
Okay.
So now we're going to kind of go over the casualties. And there were...
the deaths on the ship?
Deaths on the ship. There were so many, there's no way that I could cover them all. So this is just kind of like a brief summary, some ones that were noted that may contribute to the hauntings.
More than the Titanic type of deaths?
Oh, I don't even know how many. Actually, I may have it down here later how many, but how many died on the Titanic?
I'm unsure, honestly.
I
know there's a lot of casualties.
I guess we need to watch Titanic again. So, one of the carrier's first casualties was 1939 Heisman Trophy winner Niall Kinnock. During the ship's initial voyage to the Caribbean in 1943, Kinnock and other naval flyers were conducting training flights off their deck. The Grumman F-4F Wildcat, flown by Kinnock, developed a serious oil leak while airborne and was unable to return back to the Lexington. He ended up crashing into the sea 4 miles from the ship, and neither Kinnock or the plane was ever discovered. They were never able to find either one of them. So that was one of the first deaths.
That's kind of scary, though.
Can you imagine being on the ship and watching it happen, seeing them go down, but not being able to locate him or his plane and not being able to get to it?
Was it near the, Bermuda Triangle?
Triangle?
That's how you say it.
Bermuda Triangle. Girl, you said triangula.
No, I
Yes,
didn't.
you did.
I
Yes,
said,
you
is
did.
it near the Bermuda Triangle?
Okay, girl.
We could do a rewind.
So on December 4th, Lexington sailed to a raid. Her morning strike destroyed the SS Kimbu Maru, damaged 2 cruisers, and accounted for 30 enemy aircraft. The carrier was then attacked at midday by 6 Tenzan torpedo bombers.
What
Two,
the?
girl, I don't know. 2 were shot down while attacking the carrier, but then the task force was ordered to not open fire at night by the admiral. They believed it would give away their position if they did, but he was later replaced. So that night, a major air attack began. Parachute flares from Japanese planes covered the carrier, and 10 minutes later, it was hit by a torpedo on the starboard side, knocking out the steering gear. So, because he chose not to return fire because he was afraid they're going to give up their position, they found him anyways, and because they didn't take precautions to attack first, they 10 minutes later are completely taken over by parachute flares from the Japanese, and was hit with a torpedo.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a big mess up.
that's a huge mess up. And imagine people that, like, maybe survived. Do you think people would have survived on that?
Oh, they survived because it's never sunk. They always returned. So, I got more information on that. So,
Okay.
9 people were killed, 2 on the fantail, 7 in the chief petty officer's mess room, which was like a repair party station during general quarters. 4 members of the affected repair party actually survived because they just so happened to be sitting on a couch and it absorbed the shock from the explosion. So because they were chilling on the couch, they survived. The carrier began circling to port through dense clouds of smoke that were pouring from ruptured tanks. To maintain watertight integrity, damage control crews were ordered to seal the damaged compartments and welded them shut. Applying heavy steel plates where needed, an emergency hand-operated steering unit was quickly devised, and Lexington made it to Pearl Harbor for emergency repairs, arriving on December 9th. The error in the judgment concerning opening fire at night was never repeated. Gun crews were ordered to open fire any time the ship came under attack. Following this attack, the ship was reported as sunk by Japan's Tokyo Rose, the first of several reports that Little did they know. The first of several reports that the ship was thought to be sunk. Many similar stories would happen. They would attack the ship, they'd be convinced it's sunk, and then they would only return and ready to fight again. And again, that's how it got the nickname, the Blue Ghost.
Slay.
And that would have to be awful to be the one that has to. I could never be the one to make that call, whether fight back or just sit there and see what happens. But to be the one that did make that call and it completely backfire and your crewmen end up dying because of it, that's got to be rough.
Yeah, but I just would imagine, like, what would you would have done? Would you would have played it safe, like, oh, they can't see us?
I don't know, because there's so many lives in your hand being on that ship. You're kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, yeah, you can fight back, but then they know. Yeah, but then they know where you're at if you fight back. But if you don't fight back, then they come raining down on you with people and hit you with a torpedo, and you're out anyways. So
exactly,
that'd be rough. So on November 5th, 1944, the ship was struck by a Japanese kamikaze pilot. It crashed into the top tier of the ship, causing a huge explosion and killing 50 sailors and 152 being injured. To this day, they still have the Japanese rising sun flag marking the spot of impact. So I don't know if you remember, but when we were walking up the ramp, if you're looking at the ship towards the top, there's like a little Japanese flag at the top.
Yeah.
That's where they hit it. And they keep that flag there.
For real?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I actually have some of the pictures from inside the ship, and I have like a sailor telling that story.
Yeah, we'll have to post those.
Yeah, we'll have to post those for sure.
The Lexington became the first U.S. Navy carrier to have women aboard and started serving in 1980. Roughly 370 people have died on the ship due to battle accidents and illness. So, roughly 370 people have died on that ship.
Dang. No, I think there was a whole lot more on the Titanic. I think the Titanic death was...
I couldn't even lie to you. I have no clue.
Maybe
I'm sure it was a
1,000?
lot. Yeah, we'll have to look at that.
I can just look it up right now.
You can just Google it, girl.
Let me Google it real quick, because I actually kind of want to know that.
It's been so long since I've watched the Titanic. Do, 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 do. This is your hold music.
It keeps saying depth instead of death.
Girl, that's probably a user error.
I found it.
Okay, girl.
It's
learn us something.
1,500 passengers and crew members died in the sinking of the RMS Titanic.
Oh, that's a lot.
But specifically, 832 passengers and 685 crew members.
So, how many crew members?
685.
So just their crew members surpassed what they have lost. And how many battles did this ship see? I'm really surprised the amount isn't more than the 370. That's crazy.
You know what I think about though? Imagine if the Titanic would have been able to get out of the water. Because they won't move the Titanic.
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah.
But imagine if we could, and how haunted it would be.
Ooh, think about all the ghosts that are in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anyways, off track.
Back on schedule here. So one chief petty officer. Ooh, this one's bad. One chief petty officer accidentally backed into a plane's propeller and was immediately killed. It chopped him up into pieces.
My gosh.
That is Final Destination. Yeah.
Did you see that they made a new one?
Yeah, it released tonight, I think.
I'm gonna go watch it on Onion Play.
An onboard electrician was working on her own and accidentally electrocuted herself.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and I think I mentioned it later on. I think out of all of the 300 and however many deaths I said, there was only one woman that died, is what that said. So I'm guessing it was her. So it wasn't even an active battle at that time. It was just a work accident that the woman died.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was kind of sad. So your girl has seen some things. She has seen some things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So on to my favorite part. The Ghost Hunters. Season 3, Episode 11. So as a family, we grew up watching Ghost Hunters.
Definitely so.
Literally every day that it was on, we had the Sci-Fi Channel on and we were watching the Ghost Hunters. And I had the biggest crush on Steve Gonzalez. I was freaking in love with him.
Weirdo.
I know. And obviously my type hasn't changed. I still like that dad bod tattoo.
Mm-hmm. See, I didn't think any of them were cute.
But... Oh, I was in love with Steve. Oh my gosh.
Before my time.
So I really like the Ghost Hunters because I think they do a really good job of researching and trying to debunk the claims. I mean, yeah, they're looking for evidence, but I feel like they do a really good job of finding logical explanations.
Yeah, it's not overly dramatic.
Yes, it's not like Zach Baggins going in there and cussing out.
Where I've seen, oh my gosh, these YouTube videos, and you could tell they're lying. There's no way. They'll be like, oh my gosh.
It touched me. It touched me. Yeah, it's so stupid. But that's why I do like the TAPS team, Ghost Hunters, because I feel like they go in with an open mind, but they also look for answers. And this was a really good episode of that. I'm going to be honest. They didn't find a whole lot of evidence, which I was shocked by.
Well, I mean, when we went, did you...
I did not feel anything.
I didn't feel anything.
Nothing. It was a lot of fun. It was really neat seeing the stuff, seeing the different, the way they worked. And again, just the massive area of the ship. And they had a lot of it closed off, but there were so many twists and turns and go through this hall to get to this hall. And again, they had a lot of it closed off. I couldn't imagine trying to just navigate it.
Climb down the side.
Yes, a lot of it. So it was really cool. So we'll just start at the beginning of their episode. A lot of times, just like any others, they show up, they meet with the historian of the ship, they get the first-hand encounters from the employees of it, they get an awesome tour, and she starts to tell them some of their experiences, and I'm going to kind of list off what she told them that she went through. So here's what she said. Going down on the hangar deck, a visitor was walking down a hallway. They seen a man dressed in a Navy uniform. They came out of a door and walked out through another door into a hallway. And then just disappeared.
Nope. I was
gone. The historian also recounts that her and another employee heard a man's voice, and it said, "Hey!" And they stopped and they looked at each other, knowing that no one else was on that ship except for those two at that time. She said, "Did you just hear something?" And the other employee looked at her and said, "Did someone just yell, hey?" And then they didn't say anything after that.
That'd be creepy.
Another employee said she seen a man walking and he just went right through a wall, like just walked right through a wall. Well, come to find out where he went through, it actually used to be a passageway at one time, but had since been closed off. So to me, that's kind of like a residual haunting. Like they're just going back and forth like they used to, and it's like just the energy. It's not intelligent. They don't know that it's just residual energy going back and forth.
Basically the same for them as it was whenever they died.
One night, it was storming and all the power went out on the ship. And then the employee began hearing screaming and hollering coming from the ship. Among the lightning, he could see numerous figures running back and forth on the ship deck. But when he would actually go, nobody was there. So that's kind of creepy. So after they got a good tour and they kind of heard their personal accounts, they set up their equipment, they started their investigation. So once they started their investigation, they thought they caught a figure on their thermal. You hear the thunder? You heard that? I heard that. I hope it doesn't rain. We may have to do the thing another night. So they start the investigation. Right off the bat, they're looking through with a thermal camera, and they see a figure in the distance. And scary. I think it was Steve and Jay, if I'm not mistaken. And they're like, "Hold up, did you see that?" And so they rewound it, and they got to look in, and come to find out it's just their reflection showing up on a wall.
Oh my gosh.
So they took, and this is kind of, like I said, this is kind of what I was talking about them trying to debunk everything and figure everything out. They went up to one of the top decks and they had a laser, and they're trying to debunk the floating lights claim that they've had, and they found out it was really hard to distinguish where the light actually was, and it really did look like a floating light. And so they said that they're going to have to consider that debunked, because when they were taking that laser and shining it down, you couldn't tell where that light was on the ship. So it really did look like floating lights. But then they entered the power shop, and it had a very heavy feeling. They described it almost as very tense. Like when you enter a room after someone's had a huge fight and you can still feel the heaviness in the air.
Yeah.
That's what they were feeling. So they left the room and started using an EMF detector. And were getting small little hits, and then started hearing a clanking noise. They started trying to pinpoint the strange sound, but every time that they thought they were where it came from, they couldn't find it, and it would just lead them farther away, almost like it was leading them to a different part of the ship. They would try to chase it down, and they would get to where it came from, and then they'd hear it down the hall farther.
That's creepy.
Kind of leading them away. Jay and Grant then heard a noise that almost sounded like a wrench drop, and they could not figure out where that came from. Then they heard what almost sounded like breathing, heavy breathing. They continued hearing whispers and weird noises throughout the night. At one point, it even sounded like someone walking through water. So Steve went towards the sound, but then he determined it was probably just water smacking against the ship, which we heard that. Mm-hmm. And it does make it doesn't sound like you think it would. It does sound kind of weird. They started doing some EVP work, and Steve and Tango thought they heard a female voice. Well, at this time, Donna was the only female on the ship, but she was 7 decks above them. So not anywhere close. So they end up wrapping up the investigation. They went over all the evidence. They did catch a weird light, but it came from behind the camera. So the camera is facing out and the light lit up behind it. So you can't see the light source.
Almost like it's toying with them.
Maybe.
If there is something.
Right. Well, they said there was one security guard on the ship at the time. So they couldn't consider it paranormal because part of them wonders, was it the security guard making his rounds and maybe he flashed his flashlight from behind the camera and it kind of like the thermal, it just reflected. So they're like, we're not going to consider that paranormal, but it was weird because they didn't really see anything on any of the other cameras. They also caught 2 EVPs. One, Donna is talking, and it almost sounds like someone coughing. And then the next one, a few of them are talking, and you hear a female start talking, and then almost like a scream sound. And you can't really make out what they're saying, but you very clearly hear a female voice. Like, I almost thought it was somebody in the room. I didn't even realize that was the EVP until they pointed it out. I thought that was somebody in the room talking with them. But
I have an idea.
What?
If we do get rained out for like where we're gonna go, we should just watch this episode.
Watch this.
Yeah.
Well, they thought, well, maybe it was Donna talking, and so they checked the cameras. Donna wasn't even on the ship at that point. There was no other female on board or with their group. Donna was the only female, but it very clearly sounds like a woman talking. So that's when they did research on the ship, and that's when they found that Lisa Mayo was the only female that had died on the ship. She was only on board for about 3 days before being tragically killed. They concluded with not a lot of evidence, and they said it was definitely interesting. It was cool seeing the ship, but they weren't willing to say, yep, it's haunted.
Yeah.
So, which I understand.
Makes
sense. So I went on Reddit and I was like, I looked on the internet. I couldn't really find a whole lot. But I did find some other paranormal stories, and these are theirs that they have said. So this was people that have worked on the ship, people that have been to the ship. So it says visitors and staff have been touched by ghostly hands and regularly experience feelings of unease and disembodied voices, even hearing screams echo down the corridors and sometimes accompanied by the sounds of gunfire. But again, I think that's almost residual rather than intelligent. I don't think it's like an actual ghost or entity. I think it's just energy replaying itself over and over is what it sounds like to me. Another one said, pots and pans clank in the old kitchen. The smell of food will waft from the room, almost as if the chefs are still there hard at work. Many have reported hearing loud crashes from nearby with no explanation. Footsteps can be heard sprinting around the hangar bay and in the middle of the night. But again, that's just, to me, it's residual energy. It's just that stuff has happened so many times. You're on water. Water's a conductor of energy. And so it was just happening over and over. And it's just basically just like a record player replaying memories.
Yeah.
But then you hear shadowy figures are seen darting around as if they're roaming the decks or racing from one place to another. It is believed that these spirits are just stuck in time and reliving their daily duties and maintaining the ship.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
I don't think they're harmful as long as there's no like accidents happening, you know.
And if their whole life was dedicated to working on that ship, doing that stuff, it would make sense that's where they're at. Yeah. So one museum official tells of an encounter with a seemingly playful spirit with an affinity for pin caps. So this employee lost 6 caps over the course of 5 weeks. He searched his entire office, checking every surface. A pin cap, like to write with, like the top of a pen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he searched his entire office, checking every surface of the room. No sign of the lost caps. He comes in the next morning. All 6 caps are lined neatly in front of his computer keyboard. which is wild. That's almost like I'm messing with you. Like, I'm going to take this and make you slowly think you're crazy, and then I'm going to line them all up and really make you look crazy. So there is one famous spirit on board of the USS Lexington.
Okay, who is it?
Homeboy's name is Charlie. He is frequently encountered in the engine room. He gives tours to guests. Many tourists have reported to museum employees about how a helpful young man in the engine room had been. But there's nobody there that by the name of Charlie, and they have no idea who it is that's helping giving tours.
Oh my god.
Could you imagine getting a freaking tour and be like, oh, this is so great? And they're like, oh, that's a ghost.
I'm scared?
No.
What if we ran into Charlie?
What if we did and we didn't even realize it? We just thought it was...
Yeah.
What if it's that talking head that was so freaking creepy?
Bro.
So the stories are always the same. A handsome man with blue eyes dressed in a World War II era uniform that identifies himself as Charlie. He's described as incredibly friendly, very knowledgeable about the ship and its history. However, there's no tour guide named Charlie who works on the ship. In fact, there isn't even a tour guide stationed in the engine room at all. So many believe he was killed during the kamikaze attack. I thought that was kind of sweet, kind of cute. So another one says a security guard was looking around, just doing his job one night. His flashlight went out and he was left in the dark. I'd be scared. There's no way I'm stuck on that freaking ship in the dark. And pitch black. It's got to be pitch black.
That's so scary. In the water?
Yeah, and hearing that water like lap against the... Ooh, no. He then... This gives me chills. He then heard footsteps and came face to face with a gentleman that seemed to materialize right in front of him. His eyes almost looked vacant and hollow. He was startled and asked, "Who are you?" The figure turned and pointed toward the ship's bridge and then just vanished. The guard decided to check out where the figure pointed. He climbed the stairs to the bridge, and that is where he found a plaque with the name of a young sailor who died during the kamikaze attack in 1944.
Oh my goodness.
So that's creepy.
Imagine having an encounter like that.
Yeah.
What would you do? Like, realistically, would you go check it out, or would you...
I'd die. I'd be dead. I'd be right there.
Please don't hurt me.
Expired. So the engine room of the ship is known to be a hotbed of activity. Most experiences include the sounds of screams, scurrying figures, again believed to have been lost during the kamikaze attack. Many have reported seeing shadowy figures move across the decks, especially on the lower decks of the ship, often accompanied by footsteps that are often described as sprinting or running. And that seems to be very common. Very few say, I heard somebody walking down the ship. It's always they were running and sprinting. So many believe a lot of what is seen is a residual energy from the trauma of the ship, the screams, the voices, the cries, all of that. They just think it's just like a record playing over and over. Staff often reports items such as pen caps disappearing, reappearing, along with unexplained crashes and bangs as if the ship is still on rough seas, which it's not. Like, you don't even feel it moving when you're on it at all.
No, not really. You could just hear the water.
Yeah, you could just kind of hear the water hit it. So another thing that I found out that was kind of cool is they work with the Boy Scouts and often let Boy Scout troops come and stay the night overnight on the ship. And if I'm not mistaken...
Are they crazy?
I think it's really cool. If I'm not mistaken, I think one of my cousins actually did it. And my aunt was telling me about it. And I think he got to do it. They were telling me about it. So It was kind of cool. So I found these on Reddit, and I thought these these are the last two stories, but they're pretty good, so I have to share them. So they get one night, and they're given VIP tours of the ship. The only people on board were from the scout group and a security guard. While on a flight deck, the security guard mentioned seeing orbs and lights. We were given time to explore, and to our disappointment, we never seen any. We went into the conning tower, and all the mannequins were dressed in period clothing and seemed very spooky, which I will attest to that. The mannequins
are freaky.
And it's so weird because you turn the corner and it looks like somebody's standing there, but it's a freaking mannequin, and some of them talk.
Look, man, I went into Paint a Tree today. They had like little booths everywhere. I turned the corner.
I love that store.
Oh my Jesus. When I tell you I almost died right there. I said, and Elizabeth saw what happened to her. She started laughing at me. She was like, Are you scared? Did that scare you?
I can't with mannequins. So they went to the conning tower. All the mannequins were dressed in period clothing and they seemed very spooky. While looking at everything, it got very cold. We then heard what sounded like footsteps running down the halls and stairwells. We then heard a loud bang that sounded like a bulkhead door closing, which had to be a heavy, like loud sound.
Yeah.
So, thinking some of the boys snuck off and were playing a prank on the scoutmaster, he ensured everyone was accounted for. When they radioed the security guard who was at the hangar by the entrance, no one else was around that area. That night we went back to our bunks, and it was especially scary. A few times I woke up in the middle of the night, swore I heard whispering of people just outside my bunk, curtain and footsteps. So he's laying in his bunk with his curtain closed, and he could hear footsteps going by his bed. Yeah. The second story says, we were in the hangar deck and all the lights were off, except for a dim emergency light, so they could tell ghost stories. During the story, I looked to my left towards the emergency light, and I happened to see a man dressed in a World War II sailor fatigues, slowly walking across the deck. I could clearly see him and even asked my mom if she could see him too. She told me he's probably just an actor. How cool is it that they used them to bring the story to life? Later that night, I was very tired and trying to get some sleep in my bunk. I was on the top bunk, and it sounded like my lower bunkmate got up to use the bathroom. But I didn't hear him walk away. So I peek over, and I see the same sailor dressed in uniform just standing there and staring down the hallway. I jumped back, pushed myself to the corner of the bunk, and just shut my eyes. Before I know it, the next time I open them, it's morning, but I was still balled up in the corner and had convinced myself it was just a dream. But honestly, I'm just not sure.
That's creepy.
That's creepy. So yeah, what was some of the reports that they've seen, some of the stories? Like I said, if you ever get the chance to go visit it, it's definitely worth it. It took us all day.
I mean, it was a little pricey, but it was good.
It was definitely worth it. And I feel
don't buy the food there, though.
Oh, God, don't. Yeah, that's
it's
expensive.
It's like $7 for a hot dog. Of pizza.
But like I said, the size of it is what I mean, there's literal multiple planes on one of the decks.
Exactly.
Multiple planes, not just one, multiple. I could not believe how big this ship was.
And mind you, the planes were not small either.
No. We'll post some of our pictures from our vacation of the kids standing in it and the stuff that we got. It was definitely worth it. And like I said, plan on spending several hours there, because we even kind of rushed through it a little bit because the kids were kind of getting antsy and bored and
hot. It was
hot.
So hot.
Yeah, it was very hot. So take water. But it was definitely worth it. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, that's the USS Lexington.
I loved it.
You loved it?
Because I didn't know all of those stories.
Yeah, I wish we would have known before we left.
Me too.
Could have chilled out and been like, Charlie, are you here?
Charlie, where are you at?
Isn't there like a game or something? Like a spooky game with Charlie?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll have to ask the girls. I think they're the ones that told me about it. Ooh. I don't know if we're going to be able to go tonight. It's thundering like crazy.
Well, we'll see.
We'll have to check it out. All right. Well, that was it.
Our episode.
That was our episode. Our unplanned me to go, but that's okay.
Yeah, because I'm going to figure it out next week, guys. Don't worry.
And I've started my next episode, which will be a true crime one of a somewhat local girl. She was from Tyler. At the time of her disappearance, which I'm not giving too much away, she lived in Brownsboro, which is very close to home. And
it's literally home.
It's literally home. And it's a wild story. I didn't realize all this happened, and you will be flabbergasted on.
Well, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. And they talk about stuff, and I'm like, oh, we go there. We do that. We've been there.
And we might have a special guest next week.
A special guest.
We might.
Maybe.
So, we're planning.
We're planning things. We're trying to figure out how to make it better. We're trying to learn.
Switch it up a bit, you know?
Yeah. Keep liking, sharing, subscribing. If you guys comments and sharing is probably the biggest help.
Only nice things.
Show
us love.
You can talk about Tor's big old head.
No, please don't.
We go in our complex. It's okay.
I will report your account. Better not.
Well, I guess that's it. So I guess we'll log off here, and maybe it won't rain, and we can go look at the place.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, like, follow, subscribe, share, all the fun things.
And we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
I said good day.